Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, thank you. Nice welcome. Thank you. So good afternoon to all of you here in the room and also to our friends watching on the HSBC Facebook live feed. Probably be millions of people out there, who knows. It gives me great pleasure to be here this year at RISE, with HSBC being a platinum sponsor of this amazing conference, this RISE conference here in Hong Kong. I've been at HSBC now for a couple of years, and I have the privilege of leading an awesome IT team that is at the center of an amazing transformation, working collaboratively with the business to transform HSBC into a simpler, better and faster bank, one creating great customer experiences. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how we're doing our transformation, how we feel about startups and fintechs, and at the end I'm going to wrap up with some advice for those of you in the room who are from a startup or a fintech. Now, I don't think HSBC needs any introduction really, but for those of you who don't know that much about how a business operates, we are present in 70 countries and territories. We have 4,500 physical branches around the world, 37 million active customers. Those customers range from individuals to small businesses to small and large corporates and governments. And 45% of our clients have an international presence in some aspect of their business. So in terms of our presence in the markets where fintechs are alive, we're very much in those markets. Now, I thought what I'd do is just to get some definitions right about what a fintech really is. So I'm going to steal the definition here from an excellent report that's just been published by Ernst & Young. It's the Ernst & Young FinTech Adoption Index report. And here they have a definition of what a fintech actually is. So an organization that combines innovative business models and technology to enable, enhance and disrupt financial services. Now, clearly they're talking about not traditional players like us. And the thing that we always challenge ourselves with at HSBC is, why can't we behave like a fintech? Why can't we enable, enhance and disrupt our own business model to improve the customer experience? Now, this fintech industry has been booming in the last decade, and I'm using some material here from Boston Consulting Group, who have been a fantastic partner with HSBC over the last few years. And they have a service called the FinTech Control Tower, and they study the whole evolution of the fintech market globally. And you can see here from this presentation from 2005 to today, it's been a massive growth, going from 6.8 billion in 2005 to well over $100 billion of cumulative investment in fintechs today. And you can see the migration from data analytics right through now to the more recent developments in crowdfunding, marketplace lending, and increasingly more in e-payments, and some emergence in blockchain as well. Now, that 107 billion is spread interestingly in this fashion. The North American market still seems to be the place where most of the investment is happening. You can see 30 billion in payments, 20 billion in lending and crowdfunding. We have the EMEA group somewhat lagging the US, and APAC is coming up fast in second position, with most of the growth in the last couple of years coming from Asia, with 22 billion. And it's interesting to see that of this money, 95% of it is coming from venture capital companies. The BCG report also shows where this money is being spent in terms of sectors. You can see retail, corporate banking, and small and medium enterprise finance is where most of the money has been spent. Although more recently, in the last couple of years, we've seen massive growth in insurance, capital markets, and in pure tech plays in the areas of data and analytics, security and biometrics, and infrastructure. Now, the E&Y report talks about adoption rates. So when you look at this report, the way they've done this is they've surveyed 22,000 digital natives that consume services online across 20 countries, and they've measured adoption rates. So an adoption rate, an adoption is basically if somebody uses a new fintech service twice or more in 6 months, that registers as an adoption. Okay, so this is the statistics that they've been reporting from 2015 to 2017, and they've asked the respondents where they think it's going in the future, over the next 2 or 3 years. And you can see in all of these core markets that we operate, payments, savings, investments, financial planning, insurance, and borrowing, there's a massively increasing adoption rate from people who are operating online. So clearly this is a massive issue for an organisation like HSBC. We have 37 million customers globally operating in all of these markets with these types of services, and we're finding that the fintechs are starting to get some serious adoption rates with their products. So we have to be really mindful of what's happening here. The BCG report, and I agree with it actually, it talks about the bank of the future and how it will be architected and what sort of commercial assets we'll need to be able to function. So at the customer interface level, you're going to have highly mobile interfaces. We now have a mantra within HSBC of everything is mobile first. We're developing all of our services and customer journeys with the mobile in mind as the first channel. There's clearly going to be more interfaces with social networking. We already have built our links with WeChat in China, for example. And there'll be more bionic customer interfaces with chat and robotics at the front end as well. The products and services the banks will be offering will be very much based on marketplaces. Yes, so for lending and deposit products, will be in a marketplace type environment with an open API architecture. We're going to have more contextualized solutions using big data and artificial intelligence to provide better experiences for customers in real time using what we know about a customer. And at the infrastructure level, we're going to see much more robotics. There'll be no paper, there'll be no passwords. Biometric know your customer will become standard. Cloud computing solutions and architectures will be commonplace, whether it be on-prem or with the cloud providers. The banking industry globally is moving towards an open API architecture, which is clearly both a challenge and an opportunity for HSBC. So with this set of assets in mind, we then thought about asking our own customer base what they thought about the trends in technology. So I'd recommend you go to this URL. It's a free report that we've just published, which was an extensive survey of 12,000 customers across 11 countries, which really asked our customers globally how they feel about technology, what's their level of awareness, their propensity to adopt technology, exploring how they feel about new entrants into the market, and some key top technology topics like AI and future innovation. So this is a free report. All of the startups and fintechs here, I recommend you go and read this because there's some actually very interesting learnings that you can have about our customers. So what are our customers telling us? Well, it's a very interesting fact, so I'll just sort of throw out here to give you a flavour of what the report has covered. So 68% of people trust each other naturally until proven otherwise. But when it comes to using technology, there's still a fair amount of reticence to use technology to do the most basic things, like opening up accounts, bank accounts. Although customers believe technology is really key and important, it's actually something they're still not quite sure about. So an education is required here. Interestingly also, people think that security is actually just as or more important than how we manage their money. So clearly thinking about how we secure the services is really going to be very important. Some parts of the world still have old technology. Apparently in India, 39% still have a pager. Who's still got a pager here? I don't. On new technology, China seems to be leading the world in the speed at which new technology is being adopted. On security, what we found is that 70% of our customers still rely on traditional passwords, and they still don't really understand the biometrics, fingerprints, iris scanning, voice ID, these things which are now becoming available to customers. They're still not quite sure about that. Clearly under geography, east meets west, you have 40% of our customers in China using fingerprint technology. And the big takeaway is the need for education. Once you explain to people what biometrics is, we saw that their understanding and propensity to use it tripled. But actually 69% of people never heard of a robo-advisor, so there you go. These are all interesting things. I think the key takeaways and what we call the path to high trust is really the conclusion of this study, which is interesting for us and for fintechs to really grasp, because trust is critical to banking. Trust and confidence in what we do is really paramount to our business. And I'd suggest for startups and new businesses as well, you've got to really build a high level of trust and advocacy for your product. So it's things like investing in education, bridging that gap between people's adoption of the technology and what the technology can do, and educating people, working with the various channels to raise awareness of how to use the technology. a thing called kite marking, which is allowing the product to have a label given to it to give it some credibility around security and resiliency. There's various standards organizations around the world. In the UK, they have a program called Cyber Essentials, which gives a brand to a product to show that it has the very standard and basic and reliable security measures around the product. So these types of brandings are quite important. Obviously, simplified interfaces. I mean, it goes without saying that if you design a customer journey that's very functional, very performant, and leads the customer through a journey in a seamless way, it'll be very easy to build trust in the product. I think the biometrics and behavioral security points that I mentioned before are going to become much more important. If you can build a product that's integrated with this biometric approach of doing customer authentication, you'll have much more trust in the product. And the last key learning was regulation. Interestingly, 75% of the respondents to the survey said that they would welcome high regulation from the banking regulators and the financial services regulators to assure that the products that we're delivering are actually safe and reliable. And clearly that's a challenge for fintechs and some of the startups who aren't yet regulated in the same way that the banks are. So I recommend you take this away and read it. It's a really great piece of work and one that we've had fantastic feedback from our customers. So therefore, what does this all mean? Well, of course, this picture is actually not HSBC. This is all of our competition here in the middle. The hippos, the slow-moving, not very fast-moving, not very innovative people. And what's happening around this traditional provider of financial services is a whole range of fintechs and startups that are really eating away and challenging our value chain. So we need to respond to this, and we need to learn from this. The other challenge I have is actually implementing technology in a bank. So if you're a fintech startup, you'll know the bottom part of this picture is very simple. You create your app, you put it in the App Store, and within a few days or hours even, you've got it running on a client's mobile phone. The journey internally in a company like mine, 150 years old, some of our banking platforms, 40, 50 years old, very robust and reliable, but old technology. And we are constantly, daily, riding this dragon called legacy software, okay? Where we're building all the channels. We're building all the channels that look fantastic. We've got to get it interfaced back into these core systems that has all the data. And you can see here the trail of dead bodies of project managers that actually try and ride this, this sort of dragon of legacy tech software. So this is a big issue for us. It's a challenge for us. So how do we respond to that? Well, we are transforming the way we do things in response to this to be more like a fintech, actually, with a culture of fast-paced, customer-focused innovation. So first thing we're doing is we're changing the way we deliver solutions. More like a fintech, we have adopted company-wide, and I think this is an unprecedented transformation in terms of the size and scale of our company. We have the whole company now talking about agile and doing agile methods. We used to be, a very traditional waterfall approach to delivering solutions. It took a long time, very cautious. Now we have co-located multifunctional teams. We have state-of-the-art software delivery tools to have this continuous integration, continuous delivery type of delivery. So it feels very different. If you came and visited my team, you'd find that it feels more like a fintech startup environment than it does a traditional enterprise and certainly a bank. So we're doing all of this in scale across the whole company, and it's making a massive difference to our speed of delivery and the quality of the software we're delivering. Cloud first, well, this is the typical picture of the evolution of data in a big enterprise like HSBC, where you start up with the good old-fashioned databases and your traditional data warehouses on-prem. Then we, a few years ago, created this Hadoop ecosystem on-prem, had difficulty standing that up and getting it all working. We've sort of come to the conclusion that actually the best way to solve this problem is to partner with the cloud providers. So we have active partnerships now with Amazon, with Google, with Microsoft, and increasingly with the cloud providers here in China as well. So this is, as I said before, a fintech jumps straight to the cloud picture. They don't have to worry about all this other stuff. And we are solving some of our critical business problems using these technologies and partners. So these are 5 use cases which I've talked about in other fora, where we are taking massive data sets that require very intense compute capability and producing business outcomes that delivering huge value. We can't do any of this type of stuff properly if we try and do it ourselves on-prem. So once again, acting like a fintech, partnering with the cloud providers is delivering real value. We have a network of partnerships that we're developing, an ecosystem, if you like, around the world. We have an amazing partnership here with Astri here in Hong Kong, where we work with them now for over a year or so now with in AI, biometrics, blockchain, cyber, and data analytics. We're a member of the Alan Turing Institute in the UK, which is a data science consortium put together by the UK government to do data analytics for social awareness and social good. And we're building, as the slide shows, a series of labs in the major innovation centres around the world. So I think this is really quite key because we can then stay in those hubs of innovation where the fintechs and the startups are really challenging our traditional business model. We've also assembled a very impressive group of people called our Technology Advisory Board. So you don't typically find people with this type of background in a bank. Yeah? So we thought, well, the way to actually keep close to what the fintechs and the startups are doing and the leading edge thinkers are to assemble a group of advisors in key areas like blockchain, AI, e-commerce, machine learning and data science, some venture capital, which I'll talk about in a minute, cyber, and open banking. So these folks are all part of this advisory board. We meet with them regularly, they consult with the management team, and they work with our board of directors as well. So I think this has been a great innovation for a company like HSBC, which typically has been more insular than looking on the outside, and this has been a great innovation, much more like a fintech would behave. Now, as well as changing our technology, we're also changing our ways of working. So I showed you a video at the beginning of the type of culture that we're trying to embed within the company. And what I say to everyone in the bank is, I'm running a large tech firm within a bank. Yeah, the bank has over 200,000 people. The IT function has over 40,000 people. Okay, and we need to run our business like a fintech. It needs to be fast-paced, innovative, using latest tools, with a culture of people that actually want to do things in a fast-paced, innovative way. So there's a whole range of things we're doing around creating manifestos, training our people about how to lead and behave more like a fintech. Where the rubber's hitting the road is in retail banking. We have a range of things we're doing in these core areas. Andrew mentioned earlier we've been very successful with our e-wallet PayMe here in Hong Kong, which was launched back in February. And we have a similar program running in the UK with the SmartSave application. And all of these areas of focus are exactly the areas where the fintechs are nibbling away at the hippo. Okay, so this is an area we are very focused on. We've organised ourselves like the fintech. We have a site here in Hong Kong and Causeway Bay where if you went to that site, you would see us working there. It's just like going into any sort of fintech environment. Very fast-paced, innovative, business and IT people together, standing things up, using agile methods, very, very different to a traditional enterprise model. So what have we done so far in total? I guess the other thing that we should mention is we do have the capacity to take equity stakes in startups and developing technology businesses. And the areas of investment themes are on the top of this picture here. So, and over the last couple of years, we've made some equity investments in some of the areas that are mentioned on this page. So we are actively investing. We're typically, we can be at a very early stage, right up to Series C, Series D, pre-IPO funding in any sort of company that we feel has strategic value. So we're a strategic investor. It's not a passive investment. We would invest in a company that has a product or a service that we feel we can ingest into HSBC at pace and really help us transform our company. So a strategic aspect to the investment, and we have a big appetite for this. And the other things that are on here, we've been implementing biometrics with Touch ID. We have now voice recognition in our call centres. We have robotics happening in the back office and lots of customer interaction as well. So things are happening. It's not just all marketing. There's real things happening. Customers are seeing the result of the transformation. So I'll finish with just a piece of advice. We see fintechs as potential partners, and we welcome the competition, frankly. I think it's very healthy to have these people thinking, challenging the way we do things, making us feel, I think, very differently. But I think if I was in a fintech, this is the type of things I need to be thinking about. So going back to the Trust in Technology report that we published recently, you've got to build some way of getting advocacy for your product. So building trust in the product is really important. And there are various channels that if you're a startup, you'd have to work with those channels to get your product, accredited the right way to make people build that trust in using the product. Very statement of the obvious, but so many people do lose sight of it. Keep focused on the customer. Customer focus is absolutely critical. Talk to customers, talk to consumers in the space that you're operating, really understand their pain points and go after those pain points at pace. Patience is a virtue. I know some people probably think that we're slow moving, but we are a regulated business. We have processes actually and controls because we're a regulated business. So we can't just go and deploy a piece of software to live and hope that it works and test it in live. If my customer channels have any issues, all the journalists here will have Twitter, and they'll be onto the Twitter feed straight away saying the mobile app is down, the desktop is down, and after about 30 minutes, if I don't get it fixed, it's going to be on the banner of Sky News in the UK. So this whole thing about regulated businesses needing controls does frustrate startups and fintechs, but you have to understand that in our business, it does require a steady approach to implementing things. I suggest you find a friend, meaning a systems integrator. I have partners with all the major consultancies, the systems integrators, and they do a very good job of introducing startups and fintechs to us as a company. So align yourselves with the SIs would be a good way to start getting your networking going. I know many people who are entrepreneurs, they're very passionate about their product. When you sit down and you pull it apart and tell them how bad it is, they get very offended, okay? My advice is be open to feedback. Don't be too sensitive, because that feedback will make you a much better entrepreneur. So be open to the feedback. And the last point is pretty obvious, but you need to engage with business leaders and tech leaders in companies like mine, because we are very keen to engage and learn and partner and collaborate. That's all I have to say today. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you are all HSBC customers. Thank you.